This video today is about the AMP-150 which is a Class AB integrated amp from a Danish company who call themselves, or like to call themselves and pronounce it this way, Gato Audio, as opposed to Gato Audio. It really depends where you're from as to how you pronounce it, so there's no right or wrong way. You say tomato, I say tomato. Or actually no, it'd be the other way around, wouldn't it? So AE actually stands for, you guessed it, yeah, Anniversary Edition, and this is actually a facelifted version of the original 150 with a new dark display, new control software I've been told, also a new front faceplate with different buttons and some tweaks to the internal organisation of internal electronics. But I've been told also by Gato Audio that the sound signature and performance is quite similar to the original 150. I get off on these front dials with their anisotropic reflections off the front. One is actually a volume dial, the other an input selector. But the kind of visual party piece, if you like, of this amplifier is this big diving bell air regulator-esque front glass dial that shows volume in an analog form with this needle that rises and falls, and also a digital attenuated display. But there's also these little icons that are lit in it to show the input selected. Whether you are or aren't enamoured with the use of wood in hi-fi rack components, and I'm not particularly, and I've described it before as the Griswold family truckster look of hi-fi boxes. That car, do you remember that film National Lampoons with the wooden panels stuck on the side, very 80s looking car? In this particular amp, I actually think it looks pretty good because the wood isn't a raw wood, it's a highly polished affair. And even if you don't like it, you can get it in gloss black, gloss white, and on their website they've got a picture of a Lamborghini car parked next to their amp with an orange top faceplate, so you can actually spec the colour that you want in any event. Unlike the Hegel H390 that I'm comparing this against, that's my stalwart type test amp that I use in all my reviews, this amplifier is a pure analog amp. So there's no DAC, there's no streaming engine, there's no room readiness, there's no digital inputs. In effect, it's a purist amp for the connoisseur audiophile, if you like, that can add all their components to. And I've actually tried this with the brilliant Eversolo DMP A6 streamer. It's got a great DAC in it, fantastic streaming functionality and interface. And also I've used the OON or AOON S9C reference DAC. Both of these sources, so far as a source to the amp, very good at their price and not particularly expensive, and I did get good synergy with this amp. So talking about the simplicity as far as this amp goes in relation to connections, you've got a single set of speaker terminal outputs, XLR balanced analog inputs, a single set, and then you've got 4 RCA single-ended line inputs for source components, and then analog outputs. You've got XLR and RCA single sets, so you can use it as a preamp. I think this is the beauty with buying an amplifier like this. You can tailor it to the rest of your system and have fun in building a system around the amp and the speakers. So much of hi-fi nowadays seems to be a DAC in a streamer or a DAC in an amp, and you can't pick and choose the components as much as maybe you used to, or tailor the sound to your needs. How annoying is it when you listen to your hi-fi at night and all your components are lighting up like a Christmas tree and you get all those lights in the room making your room illuminated? Obviously that's catered for in lots of amplifiers by a dimmable front display, and this amp is no exception. You've got this front button. You can either have the analog and digital display on, or you can turn it fully off. So far as with the remote control goes, with the RC4, it's a nice metal rimmed solid feeling remote in the hand and well shaped for your hand. You get on-off functionality, mute functionality, volume up and down, and input selections. So it's pretty simple, easy to use again. There is also a setting to set full volume, fixed volume. They call it direct mode. Obviously this is for home cinema systems, and I think I stand corrected on this though, that you can use that on the tape input, although I never actually tried as part of this review. I'm not a home cinema person, this is a 2-channel audio review channel. But this amplifier, interestingly, has this feature where when you turn it on, it now starts to heat up automatically. There's a heating element in it somehow. I don't quite understand it myself. And when I post my online article, I'll add some meat to the bones of that and how that actually works. I did ask a number of questions of Gato Audio for this review, but that's one of them we didn't quite elaborate on, so I'll come back to that. But be aware that these reviews are now being kept a little bit shorter so that I can post online articles as well to fill out the meat of the bones of the review, because there's an awful lot of repetition in doing or giving you information that is already out there that you can get off other YouTube videos. So the idea is keeping it to my 2 pennies worth. But yeah, this heating aspect of the design is basically to get all the components up to temperature straight away, so you don't get best performance after you've been listening for maybe a couple of hours. But another thing that Gato Audio do to improve things with this amplifier is keep the preamp stage separate from the power amp stage by mounting the preamp on its own separate PCB, which uses its own regulated power supply, another thing that most people can get on board with to keep the noise from the 2 stages of the amp separate. And Gato Audio also use what they call twin FETs, essentially MOSFET output transistors, which are at the output of the amp. Think of it as bringing up the required output signal at the output of the amp. Essentially, they explain it as saying that in most amplifiers, you have a row of output transistors that are basically summing the output from one transistor to the next, and they're in a parallel connection in the circuit. Also, conventional amplifiers use negative and positive transistors at the output, so you have obviously the positive part of the sine wave and the negative part of the sine wave by those output pairs. But this design, the twin FET idea, is to use a single pair of output MOSFET transistors, but that are both negative. So obviously the circuit inside this Gato Audio has to deal with transferring one of the negative MOSFETs into a positive part of the signal. And this is so cool because of asymmetrical time domain errors, Gato Audio say, in using unmatched transistor pairs, that they also say leads to issues with distortion and reducing dynamics. So you're thinking, why is he wearing a different t-shirt? Well, I was just having lunch and soup and I didn't want to splash it on myself and then clean it and have like continuity errors. Plus, this is the sound quality section of this video and this t-shirt is very apt, I was thinking. Oh, by the way, you can actually get this t-shirt in the merch area of my store. Check out under the main video banner. The first thing that you notice when you start listening to this amplifier that is blindingly obvious is it's very resolving and very good with dynamic transients. So I'm comparing it to the Hegel H390, as I said, and there's a sense at kind of everyday listening levels that dynamic transients are almost the equal of the H390, which, considering the H390 has 250 watts into 8 ohms, and that's per channel, compared to this Gato Audio's 150 watts at 8 ohms, again per channel, is quite amazing that you can get this kind of sound quality for a relatively small box and as a design piece as well. There is also the thing that my PMC speakers just love power. A big takeout of doing this review is this sense that this amplifier has better dynamic transients than it has any right to, considering the power that's on offer. This pace, rhythm and timing, the name coined marketing term, describes it really, really well. And we could put this down to, if we're to speculate, because part of my job as doing reviews is to relate design feature to an amplifier's sonic signature and therefore USP. And in this case, I think it's probably and very possibly down to this single MOSFET pair at the output that leads to, and this is corroborated by what Gato audio say as well, this more direct, shorter signal path type sound, which means you get all these benefits of Pratt, pace, rhythm and timing. Who came up with that term? I would say that it's not either too forward or too laid back in its character, but it has what we've come to expect in modern hi-fi. I'd call it resolving neutrality. You go to any hi-fi show, you listen to really great resolving systems and they all have that character, which I think is something to be advocated, but it means that it's suitable for pretty much most types of music that require resolution. So classical, rock, and in my case, one of my favourite genres, down-tempo electronica, which is heavily melody driven. And if you want to check out some of these tastes, there is something for everybody in these albums. Check out my videos that I've called Artist Focus on this genre. So far I have done Fortet, 07, Lemon Jelly and OTT. And I'm going to be doing one soon on Underworld's best down-tempo electronica. So because the Hegel has slightly better slam and depth, I'd say, with certain speakers, it doesn't cast this Gato audio out because it's better made than the Hegel. This has all metal, all aluminium. It's clearly a design piece. It's slightly smaller footprint, so it's going to fit into smaller spaces, this Gato audio. And it's at a lower price, so it's designed for a different audience, and it obviously doesn't have components in it that the Hegel has, the DAC and so on. So, you know, it might be a choice over the Hegel depending upon what you want. Another thing is that it's more projected in its top end compared to the Hegel, and also there's better, more nuanced, more qualitative treble in the upper mid-range that brings out more resolution in the music. I wouldn't say that the Hegel is meh with detail, it's just really horses for courses, what's your medicine, what do you really want? I think that the way that it paints its treble and bass probably adds to this sense of its great pace and timing and very good with dynamic transients, because you tend to find that, and that usually happens with these types of amplifiers. I'm really signed up to this amplifier and the way it looks and the way it sounds, and it suits my tastes. It's just lovely. The Hegel H390 is in the €5,500 price territory, and it does dig a bit deeper with bass and a little bit more dynamic, certainly with my PMC speakers that, as I say, they like power and they're not that sensitive. But you may prefer the Gato audio if it just meshes with the balance of your speakers a bit better. Also, if you just want that approach to treble that they bring, they're in that sense a little bit more exciting than the Hegel. And also the Gato audio is priced at €4,395, so €1,100 cheaper than the Hegel. And again, to reiterate the point, that's particularly the case if you don't want to double up on all the features that the Hegel already has, the DAC, the streaming, room ready, Spotify Connect. Another thing I'd say is that this amplifier is about, if you get on board with its sonic character, qualitatively the same as some British amplifiers I've tried that sell in the UK for a similar price. But if you buy those amplifiers in America, they're like $2,000 or $3,000 more. The price in pounds and euros, if you swap it to dollars, is roughly the same with this amplifier. So that gives you an idea that you're not paying more and more if you're a US customer buying this in the US. But so far as what those amplifiers are, I'm keeping that to my Patreon audience who invest in me. One thing I think I should say that I was just intending to put in my written article was that you can now try before you buy with this amplifier, not only in Europe, but you can now do that for US customers as well. I think this was part of the drive when Gato Audio got rid of their distributors a while back. They're inclined to deal with customers direct. If you want more of my in-depth thoughts on other amplifiers, how they compare, what my picks are and preferences are, what I think is better, then please sign up to Patreon to get more content. It's literally the cost of buying me a drink every month. Maybe not in a London pub at the moment, £7 a pint, ridiculous, but that's another matter. But I can save you money. It shows that you're investing in me. I'm giving back to people who invest in me. And yeah, check it out on Patreon. I think at the moment I've got it down as £5 a month, €5, $5. But in the meantime, thanks very much for watching on YouTube. And if you haven't subscribed on YouTube, please remember to do so.